Parents of Reddit, what is the most disturbing thing your child has done? Put a very hot pepper in his mouth. Cry, wheeze, cry again, exclaim that he hates it, then proceed to do it again. Didn't cry the second time. The F. I came here in hopes of feeling better about myself and my son, 4 years, but here we go. My son, for over a year, has been afraid of something green in the same spot on the ceiling. He continues to tell me, shh, don't wake the Grinch. At daycare, he has face stomped a kid at nap time because he took a toy horse from my son on day 1 at the daycare, used a toy stethoscope to choke a kid because he wanted the toy. When I tried to explain how it hurt the kid, my son told me, well, he didn't say anything. No, child, he didn't say anything because he couldn't breathe. Yes, we are in therapy. When my daughter was about 4 and it was approaching Easter, she said, I want to kill all the Easter eggs. My wife and I were like, what? She said, I want to kill all the Easter eggs. I said, what do you mean? She replied, you know, dip them and make them all different colors. I said, you mean dye the Easter eggs? She shrugged and looked at me like, yeah, duh, yeah, moron. 14 years old, stole a car and trashed it, texted the victim and called them a stupid old bag who couldn't do anything about it, offered to bribe them with $900 not to call the cops. She doesn't have $900. She planned to steal this from her parents. Never once showed an ounce of remorse or apologized in any way. It's not easy coming to the realization that if you weren't their parent, you wouldn't be friends with your own child. My daughter told me about her imaginary friend. Details, dress color, hair color, on and on and on. I stood there saying, oh, that's neat, at 3 AM trying to coax her back to sleep. Then she said, oh, she says she knows you. Her name is Misha. Growing up, I'd also had an imaginary friend named Misha. Instantly awake, she fell back to sleep a little later and I figured it was a fluke. Couple of months later, mom gave me a box of drawings she'd found cleaning out the closet from when I was young, 3 or 4, and while going through them my daughter grabs my arm and says, see Misha, and pointed to a drawing I'd done from school titled My Friends. Same color dress, yellow, same hair color, reddish black, nearly myself. I don't believe in the supernatural, and nothing remotely like this has happened since in the 4 years since this happened, and her imaginary friend has come and gone. But her sister is turning 3 and I'm waiting for the name again. I don't remember the girl I used to play with in the woods by my childhood house, but my daughter had backstory that sounded very familiar. I'd try to press her for details when all this was going on and my daughter would just giggle and say, you know, dada, you just forgot. That's okay, and pat my arm and walk away. 3.5-year-old threw literal rocks at his helpless newborn sister in her car seat because he was mad that we were leaving the park. Kids do some messed up stuff. Was the newborn hurt? Really, young kids, toddlers, can be brutal. When my youngest sister was a baby, my mom left her and my other sister, who was 2 at the time, on her bed, just for a minute to use the bathroom. When she came back in, she found the 2-year-old pushing down on the baby's head to crush it into the mattress. She had a couple of small scratches and was crying, but nothing serious. Stuff like this happens so quickly that it's unavoidable when you need to do things like go to the bathroom or put a bag in the trunk of the car. Young kids usually just really don't understand the consequences of actions like these, and it's impossible to foresee every weird impulse they will get to say a preemptive no. Like maybe your sister saw your mom cracking eggs earlier that day and thought the baby's head looked like an egg or some other random whatever. Parenting often feels like a series of near misses and choosing the least bad of many not good options. Not really done, but said. My daughter at 3 years old once woke me in the middle of the night crying and shaking. She said she saw a ghost. I asked what the ghost's name was. She said she didn't know, followed by I asked the ghost its name. The next morning, she calmly tells me that the ghost's name is Charlie. It was particularly odd, because she's not the kind of kid that's creative with names. Every dog stuffed animal is named Doggy, dolls are Dolly, etc. So the ghost having a very clear, real name was unusual for her. 4 months she'd tell me about Charlie and how he hangs out in the tree by her window. My 2-year-old pooped himself, then proudly gave me his turd that he took from inside of his poopy diaper. My 3-year-old stuck her thumb out on the main road as if to hitchhike. I was shocked and I asked where she learned that from. She said she used to do that to get around when she was a big girl. That was creepy, well, for me anyway. My son 4 years old loved watching The Price is Right. This was when Bob Barker was the host. Anyway, my son would clap, yell with excitement along with the audience. When someone would lose he would be so disappointed for them, until one day he got so pissed off. I was in another room. He's yelling, "Throw the old man in the dryer." I came out asking what's wrong. The lady didn't win the washer and dryer. My son is pissed and wants to burn poor Bob in the dryer. My son used to sleepwalk occasionally when he was little, 6-8. One night he came over while his dad and I were sitting on the couch and told us I duty like the people in the basement. They're too loud. Good thing the couch was brown because someone may have pooped in my pants right then. Not my child, but a client's child. Before the incident I'm about to relay, she had been diagnosed with manic depression with psychopathic tendencies. Anyway, one day her mom is driving and she realizes her daughter is super quiet in the backseat. She turns back to see what's going on and her daughter is sitting there quietly with a pencil sticking out of her cheek. She literally stuck a pencil in her cheek without making a sound and then just sat there like it was normal. She was 9. Was having a house party a few months ago. My friends came over and brought their kids. My wife got a bouncy house for them to play on. All the adults were inside eating food and chatting. Some of the kids were outside playing on the bouncy house. I realized that at least one adult should be out there with them. So I left the adults and wandered outside. As I was getting closer to where the kids were playing, I started hearing some rhythmic chanting coming from their direction. I got suspicious, so I decided to sneak up on them and see what they were doing. 4 of the children were holding hands and bouncing in a circle in the middle of the bouncy house chanting "Evil rules, evil rules, evil rules." I stood there in amazement for a minute trying to figure out what game they were playing. One of the girls in the group suddenly looked in my direction and screamed, "Oh no, he's here, run." All the children scattered and ran away. To this day, my son still won't tell me what they were doing. My 8-year-old has held steak knives to his neck threatening to kill himself. He's currently in therapy and has been admitted for a few days due to out of control and harmful behavior. Sharp objects are also hidden and out of reach. He was doing weekly counseling for behavioral steps until his counselor quit, accepted better paying opportunity elsewhere, and now we're on the waiting list again. His psychiatrist diagnosed him with odd, oppositional defiance disorder, and I do agree with that, but I also believe he may be either bipolar, runs in my family, or have BPD. Odd normally stems off another main diagnosis. They refuse to reassess him and I've had to verbally confront his psychiatrist about not taking my concerns seriously because he's assuming I just want to medicate my son so I don't have to deal with him. I'm in the process of finding him another psychiatrist and psychologist. Wish my parents were this thorough when I held a huge knife to my chest at age 9. Instead they yelled at me to keep doing the dishes and grounded me from everything except to read books. I wasn't being funny and they knew it. I literally wanted to die in that moment. They never questioned me or tried to help me. I was in so much pain and I didn't know how to process it. This continued on for many years and all I received was punishment, getting yelled at, put down, and ultimately a stronger desire to die. I look back and feel so bad for child me. I'm really hoping your son gets the help that he needs. I'm hoping he values your support and care. I take mental health very seriously. I'm trying very hard to break the cycle in my family. My birth giver, and her side of the family, has bipolar and God knows what else, but childhood with her was not fun and very abusive and manipulative. As an adult, she has no place in my kids or my life anymore and it's been that way for 5 years. It's difficult and I'd be lying if I didn't lose my patience every so often, but kid obviously has some kind of imbalance, whether that's a chemical neurological one or an emotional one. I have 3 other kids and another on the way and I need to figure out a way to help him in order for him to be safe towards himself, his family, and others before he hits puberty, or I'm worried it'll get too far out of control and land him in places he shouldn't be in. I also self-harmed as a teenager and I still very much remember trying to OD while my mom told me to sleep it off in my room and not on her couch. I understand how dark sh can get, regardless of how old you are. I don't understand why adults believe if you're a kid you're not entitled to your emotions. Being a teen mother, had my oldest kid when I was 16. It really does help you keep in mind how a child thinks in many different aspects. My 10-year-old hotwired the car and started backing out of the driveway. Luckily I caught up to him and was able to hop in and stop it before it crashed into my neighbor's mailbox. Not a parent, older cousin who lives with younger cousin. He's a sweetheart and lovely. He was 4 at the time. He's now 5. He said at breakfast, out of the blue, "Today is a good day to go on a murder streak. No one here is allowed to watch that stuff." He showed me a drawing of him looking in a mirror and in the reflection a demon was there. He pointed to the demon and said, "That's me." He ended up getting a mental evaluation. He's fine. Just creepy. I don't have a picture. I can redraw it and post it if you wanna see it. Perhaps not disturbing, but terrifying as a parent. We were on a vacation in Chicago staying at a random Fairfield Inn or something downtown. Our bed was separated by a divider in the room and 2 of our kids were sleeping in a pull-out couch on the other side. Around 3 AM awoke to sounds of Velcro and it sounded like my kid was putting his shoes on. He was. Next thing I know I hear the hotel room door opening. I leaped further than I thought possible across the entire suite and was able to grab him just as the door was about to close and pulled him back into the room. He was sleepwalking, but I shudder to think what might have happened if I wasn't roused by the sound of him putting on shoes. I was a newly single parent, working on a divorce. First, very small, apartment I achieved on my own. Post-separation, I decided to get my kids a cat. My then 5-year-old, who has a few behavioral disorders, ADHD, OD, SPD, PTSD. She's struggling to cope and manage her disorders, so she has to be watched closely at all times. One day she's playing with the cat and I hear the microwave shut. She was not allowed to use any kitchen appliances on her own. So yup, if you guessed she put the cat in the microwave, you're correct. Luckily as soon as I heard it I jumped up and ran. She didn't turn it on, but she did find herself grounded, including from the cat. Another time, almost 2 years ago, still struggling with all of her behavioral disorders, I had moved into a bigger house. Safety plan still in place for said child. We are about to watch a movie or something, and get everything ready, snacks, blankets etc. And child goes missing. She liked to hide in places and not come out until she was found. After searching all of her hiding spots, she's still not found. After about 30 minutes of looking, felt like an eternity, and about 5 minutes before I called 911, she turns up at the front door, absolutely filthy, pupils dilated to the size of saucers. Her excuse was the cat wanted to show how he gets in and out from the basement. I have no idea what kind of Narnia wardrobe this cat took her to. Roughly same time. Said child liked to draw, paint, and color. One day she brings me some of her artwork, but this time, it is a story, or some sort of lyrics. At this time she was behind academically and didn't know how to read or write or words very well. But here this letter talks about demons and how lost she would be without me. Some scary, eye-catching stuff coming from your young child. I kept this letter to remind all of us how far she's come. Hard times do get better. Needless to say, safety measures became more strict. Psychologist was fired. Meds put in place. She is no longer impulsive or defiant to this extent. She's now struggling with sleep paralysis, but we have made phenomenal grounds over the last year.